It's a cloudy day, and my best friend of 36 years has my arm, and she taps me and she said, "Look up." At that time, I look up, the clouds parted and a rainbow popped out. There's my sign. I fell to my knees, and in that moment, there was a something shifted within my being and heart.
Yeah. Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things very expensive in my eyes. Time, 24 hours has been offered all of us. What we do with our 24 hours, I keep telling people it's going to expose your sins. I'm going to know how you are by how you operate with that 24 hours. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. It gave this woman, this beautiful, powerful warrior that is before us, some stuff it deposited in her. We want access. And in order for us to get access to that, she has to become vulnerable. And so we want to honor her for coming in and allowing us access to her wisdom, her knowledge, her insights that she's gained as a result. Bethany, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you so much for having me. And, are we ready to deep dive into some interesting concepts, some interesting growth? And wow, it's just a pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's all we do here at Threads of Enlightenment. As you told me you listened to this wonderful program. Thank you so much. That first question that I always level at everyone is to identify their servanthood as to how do you serve mankind? That's my question.
Well, how I serve mankind is through what this body being right here has been through the experience of what we talked about earlier, trauma. Um, what I have found is that the love for self has brought me to a understanding and a knowing of thyself and my heart. And that's how I serve humanity, is to offer tools and guidance that has absolutely facilitated my best self, where I am operating and vibrating in such a frequency and such a rate that it is now so much fun just
Yeah.
to wake up and experience each now moment and how magical life truly is when you break the programming, when you break out of the mindset. And it's a powerful, powerful place to be.
It
For
is
sure.
it
And
is
so
what we are
I
called to
share my
be.
experience.
Yeah, it's where we're called to be. And I think, as you mentioned, when we serve from a place of authenticity, if you will, we have
Mhm.
discovered self. We love self, as we will. And from there, we notice our journey through our journey. We have been broken. We have been humble. We learn about forgiveness, empathy, and all that stuff. So when we serve, and we love our getting up of the next day, if you will, because we are serving from a place of love, from an
And compassion.
energetic level that is absolutely powerful. Let me ask you this question. Go ahead. You had something to say. Let's
You know,
get it off your chest, girl.
but what's so magical is, we were told that the heart is nothing more than an organ pumping blood through our body, and that is the lie. This frequency, the heart, is such a magnetic pull to an experience, and this is when I operate out of my heart and I shut my mind off. I'm telling you what, this realm is more magical than I had ever been told, knew, operated in. And, it's pretty interesting. We were speaking about earlier, we were programmed. And when my team, such as my galactic, my angelic, my indigenous, and my ancestral, along with my only child, came through and said, Kevin's like, Mom, I need you to go research something. I was like, okay. So my teams came to me and told me to go look up a TV. And I was like, what? What in the world are we talking about? So, how many of us grew up with a TV in our house?
Yeah.
I know I did. And I
Yeah.
did this with my son. And how many of us know exactly what a TV is? A TV is a television. It's telling you a vision through visual and audio on repeat to get a feeling, an emotion. So I was like, okay. So then my teams told me to go research how children are programmed. How many of us sat in front of a TV growing up watching holiday movies and Disney. I did this, I was done this, my parents put me in front of a TV. I did this to my son. And how many of us sit down and watch a television? Now, a television, you sit down, you turn on the dial like a frequency, you dial
Uh-huh.
in what channel you want to go to, and then you locate your programming. Now, what I found interesting about programming and these movies is that children from the ages of 0 to 7 operate on a brain wave of theta.
Uh-huh.
Theta is a brain wave of hypnosis. Children from the ages of 0 to 7 do not intake information from logic. They take in information through visual and audio on repeat to get an emotion. I can remember my mother saying, Bethany, this is the color orange. And I was like, from 0 to 7, all we knew was this is orange. Well, this is a frequency. We all we all know about energy. And so through repetition, and good girl, that's orange. That's how I downloaded this frequency of orange. Now it's interesting with the Disney. Now, how many of us have watched movies that are Aladdin, Finding Nemo, Lion King, Dumbo, Pinocchio, Cinderella, Snow White, Beauty and the Beast? All of these programs, movies are all have lower aspects of frequency. All are in blame, shame, guilt, less than, not enough, grief, loss, and separation on repeat. And we took these on as our own identities because we, through visual and audio, we were taught in hypnosis, theta brainwave, that this is the way to react. This is the way to do. So we took on programming that we didn't really realize at the time that we were operating in lower aspects of frequency. And I found this fascinating that we were, tell our vision. It was telling us how to think, be, and feel
Uh-huh.
on repeat.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, mind blown, right?
Yeah, it is. So I like to go back, Bethany, is I call it our beginnings of our beginnings, if you will, the beginnings of our beginnings, where that first location, our family, as the programs that are starting there. And when we're there, we're going to learn about our communication skills right there. Our beliefs are going to be start developing there, as you mentioned before. Pattern of behavior is going to be starting to show right here. The mindset, all of as a result of all the different downgrade and downloads that we have as we are learning right here. Trauma is introduced as well right around this time as well.
Yes.
What was your family unit like?
Well, it's I have two amazing parents, and I have if my brother, he'll probably watch this, and I have a golden child brother. This guy is, he could never do any wrong. He was a good kid. And I mean, I don't even think my brother had a speeding ticket. I mean, a total geek, I called him. I still call him that. But I had an amazing, family life. But here's where it got interesting for me at the third grade. My teachers pulled my parents to the side and said, Hey, we think you need to go get Bethany tested. We think she's on the spectrum. And so, as any great parents would do, they took
Yeah.
me to a psychiatrist to go get tested. Well, the psychiatrist came back and said, Yeah, Bethany's on the spectrum. We're diagnosing her with ADD. So, attention deficit disorder.
Hmm.
So, as the psychiatrist gave my parents two handfuls of prescriptions, Adderall and Ritalin. Well, we now know that this is narcotics, Schedule 2, I think it is. It's amphetamine,
Yeah.
it's pretty much speed. And so my parents were just doing as they were instructed. And so they gave me this medicine. Well, I was starting to get made fun of at school. I was just a zombie. And I told my parents, I was like, I can't do this. And so, they still continued to give it to me because they just thought they were helping. And so I would take it out and spit it in the garbage. Well, they caught on to my shenanigans. And one day I took a bite of a hamburger and I bit into it. And Ken, when I tell you in that moment, I had a complete mind shift. I thought that the only way society accepted me is if I was drugged or intoxicated. I felt blame. What's wrong with me? Shame, guilt, less than, not enough. And I ran that that traumatic program for many years of my life. And, that was a really big eye opener for me. I thought that I was broken.
Yeah.
Something was wrong with me.
So here's
Yeah.
this girl that traumatized many thousands and millions of kids were with that nonsense
Mhm.
that lazy educational system failed
Mhm.
to do. And, don't get me started with that.
Yeah.
Here's this girl. Now she's going to have to manage this. She's going to have to survive. And in order to survive, she's going to have to create her story as a young individual to deal with all of this trauma. What was her story, Bethany? How did she
I was
show up?
angry. I was angry. I was an angry child growing up. I was just thought something was wrong with me. And so I really became defensive. And so my parents put me in soccer, and I really did good at soccer. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed soccer. And so I graduated high school, and then many of my adult years I was still running that program of broken and anger. And then I got pregnant in 2000, and I gave birth to my only child, Kevin. And, it was absolutely a gift that I had this beautiful young being. And, you remember your parents saying, "Ha ha ha, you're going to pay for your raising,"
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't get that. My child was absolutely fabulous. I mean, I had told Kevin at a young I said, "Son, books can take you places that a suitcase can't." And so he really threw himself into reading, and anything that had ology, biology, astrology, mythology. He studied quantum physics, mechanics, energy, light, sound, frequency. And at the time, I had no idea about any of that. And so, I was just a stay-at-home mom, and it was absolutely one of the best things I got to experience as a being, as being a mom,
So here
being a
you
mom.
have this wonderful experience of being a parent, and you have this your teacher, your great teacher in the body of your son there. And he is doing all of the studies of quantum physics and all of the spiritual realm and all. Did any of it, because I know you said you weren't into it at that time, did any of it began to rub off on you in any way, shape, or form? Were you interested, or you just, yeah, that's the beautiful child. He's in his own dream. Let him handle it.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly it. And I was just like, "Oh, that's interesting, son. Way to go. Okay. Woohoo." And, he did so well at school. He scored like a 32 on his ACT. Well, the military came to him and was like, "Hey, we need you to, would you be interested in testing?" And Kevin was like, the complete
Yeah.
sponge he was. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I love, a test." So he tests, and he scored the top 1% of the top 1%. And the military came to him and said, "Hey, here's a contract we want you to sign for a nuclear physicist." And Kevin was like, "No, not so much." He said, "Mom, they would have came to me as astrophysicist." He said, "I probably would have done it." But yeah, I had no idea about anything until after my next traumatic event, and then the downloads, and my world just got
Yeah.
absolutely.
Let's talk
Yeah,
about that because I always tell people that in between, we call it life happens.
right.
In between life happens, and life has a way of molding us, crushing us, and putting us through the mill, bringing us, and we have the ups and downs in it, but we are not really touched yet. We haven't been awakened, if you will,
Right.
until something happened. And I tell people a trauma has to happen in order to shake you from your current state.
Mhm,
Once you are removed from that state, whatever
mhm.
state you're in that dream state, now you can begin to receive some instructions, some questions you begin to ask, and so forth. Talk to us as life happens until. Talk to us about that day of, I call it the day of visitation, the day that changes our lives forever. Talk to us about that day.
Now, you wanna talk about a day that absolutely flipped my world upside down. I was working a job. I was at the time, I was working a little third end job, and, my manager comes up to me and is like, "Hey, Bethany, we need you to clock out." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, I need you to clock out. You've got people out in the parking lot." I was like, "No, there's no way. It is like 2:30 in the morning. Nobody knows where I work. What do you No, that's not me." She said, "Bethany, I need you to clock out." Okay, I'm clocking out. So I clock out and I pop the doors open and I walk out into the parking lot, and every single being of my immediate family is standing there looking at me. I was like, "Man, this is odd. This is really weird." So I walk up and my mom tells me, "Bethany, I need you to sit down in the van." I said, "Okay." So I sit down in the van and she looks at me. She said, "Bethany, I need to tell you tonight, Cabin was killed in a car wreck. A guy crossed over the center line, hitting him head on, killing him instantly." Now, when I get to this, Ken, I am physically, well, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, I am put back. I can feel the frequency, the vibration of what comes next. In that moment, after my mom told me that, I let out a scream so rare to me that it's still, when I talk, I have hair on my neck stand up and I collapse to the floor. This is my world, my heart. The only thing, the thing that brought me the most joy was being a mom. And my worst fear just came and I collapsed to the floor and devastated. In that moment, I was like, I failed. I'm a failure. I didn't protect my child. I blamed myself. I shamed myself. I was devastated. So my brother drives me home, and Kevin's dad, I called him on the way home. And he said, "Bethany, I'm going to come pick you up tomorrow. We need, it's time to come home." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So we go make all the funeral preparations. And Ken, that morning of the burial, the funeral, I was in Kevin's room and I said, "God, I don't know what I'm gonna do." I threw myself on the floor and I said, "Please give me some kind of sign, something that Kevin's okay." Well, as I'm walking away from the burial, it's a cloudy day, and my best friend of 36 years has my arm, and she taps me and she said, "Look up." At that time, I look up, the clouds parted and a rainbow popped out. There's my sign. I fell to my knees, and in that moment, there was a something shifted within my being and heart. I felt some kind of, it's such a powerful feeling in my
Yeah.
heart, and I was like, "Okay, okay." So that next year, I was pretty, in my grief. I was
Yeah.
struggling. But I found this very interesting information started to flow to me and through me in such a way that I was led in my being to write this stuff down. Now, Ken, I had no idea what I was writing down, and up until just a few months ago, I would go to that journal years after, and I'm still astonished by what I wrote. Now, I started to research and study NDEs, near death experiences. And the information that I was finding, what these beings were coming back and saying that they had felt, seen, and heard when they crossed out of the body. And the information they were bringing back just blew me out of the water. I was like, wow, that is so interesting. Well, then all this data and information of quantum physics, quantum mechanics, quantum entanglement, light, sound, frequency, vibration started to just download at a rapid rate. Well, one day I'm sitting on my couch. I said, "Man, I need to go take a shower." So I go in my bathroom. I pull back the shower curtain, Ken, and I look down, and there's coins inside of my bathtub. Now I don't know, I don't know about you, but I don't shower with coins. I don't have pockets. I don't have a
Yeah.
handful of them. So I found this interesting. So I picked up the coin, and it had my son's death year on it, 2020. I picked it up and I was like, "Well, that's interesting." I just put it aside. Well, several days had passed. I get up out of bed and I make my bed as I normally do, tidy up, make it up. That night, I go get in it, pull my sheets back. What's in the bed? Coins. I was like, "What? These coins are not here this morning. What is going on?" Several days had passed. I get up out of bed. I put my feet on the floor, and what do I find? Coins. I was like, "Man, this is strange." So here's where the whole mind shift happens. One day I'm vacuuming my floor. I go put the vacuum up and walk back into my living room. Now I look down on my freshly vacuumed floors, and what do I find? Coins. Now, these coins were not just there. They
Yeah.
were not just there, because if they would have, I would have picked them up. So I picked up the coin, and it had Kevin's birth year on it, 2000. I said, man, what in the world is going on? I grabbed my phone and I called my mom. It's like, Mom, I said, I don't know what's going on, but I'm finding coins everywhere. She said, oh my gosh, Bethany, your father and I, we were finding nickels, dimes, pennies everywhere too. I said, what? She said, yeah, I think it's Kevin trying to communicate with us. I said, what? I hung up the phone. I ran out onto my deck and I said, Kevin, hey, buddy, if this is you, man, can you show up for me like a bluebird or a redbird? Ken, the very next day, every single place I turned, there was a blue jay or a cardinal. Everywhere I turned. Now I got
Wow.
cold chills. I got right then and there. I said, my goodness, this child is trying to communicate with me. And in that moment, I got so elevated. I got so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't lost anything. I've gained so much. And
Yeah.
so when I started to absolutely get in the morning, just get excited about the limitless amount of possibilities and how my son could come through my guides, my teams.
Yeah.
And Ken, when that happened, oh, baby, I'm talking about it got really loud and it got really magical. I mean, he started coming to me in ways that would blow your mind. I could sit here for the rest of this podcast, Ken, and tell you how I communicate with this child and my beings. It's absolutely blows my mind. Blows my
So
mind.
here's this mother who's stubborn as anyone else because she got like coins all over this place, started bathroom floor, all over. Probably didn't, if you saw it on the ceiling, you still wouldn't have gotten it. So, but once you got it, you ran, you recognized, okay, this is something here. You
Mhm.
went to mom, and mom said, wait a minute, something here. This is what's happening here. And you're being introduced to the quantum realm and energetic behavior and all kinds of fun things as you're about to be escorted, if you will. And now you're seeing, and you became aware that there's another side, if you will.
Yes. And here's how now.
Talk to us about that.
Okay, so this blew me away. Kevin came to me and my teams one night in a dream. And Kevin, I was like, he said, Mom, when I was he calls his body the concrete shoes. He said, Mom, when I was in my body, it was like trying to walk in concrete shoes through quicksand. He said, that's how dense and condensed the human body is. And I was like, wow, that kind of makes sense. But anyway, so he was like, Mom, when I was in my physical body, he said, we vibrated and operated on pretty much on the same frequency, same vibration. He said, but Mom, when I returned back into energy spirit, he
Huh?
said, I rose in frequency. I vibrate higher. He said, but when I crossed, he said, you dropped in frequency because you were now operating in grief, blame, hurt, sorrow. He said, Mom, do you see how hard you see how far the distance is on a frequency energetic level it is for us to communicate? He said, do you see how hard that is? And so I went and researched frequency. Do you know where shame vibrates at on a frequency chart? Shame vibrates at 20 hertz. Sorrow vibrates at 50 hertz. Grief vibrates at 75 hertz. Fear vibrates at 100 hertz. Guess where death vibrates at? 0. So you mean to tell me that when I'm operating in sorrow, guilt, shame, grief, and fear, I am vibrating right next to death?
Hmm.
I when you're vibrating that low, all you really wanna do is feel better, but how can you vibrate and communicate with higher aspects of frequency and energy when you're only operating in lower? That's not a thing. You
Yeah.
can't do that. That's if you're in low frequency, you're only like attracts like. So when you put out into the quantum field that you are vibrating in these lower frequencies, you're only attracting more of that frequency back to you.
Hmm.
So when I was in sorrow, I would put that out on an energetic level out into my field. We all have an electromagnetic field that precedes us at 6 feet, 360 degrees around. Now, when I'm thinking those thoughts, this is my antenna. I'm throwing the thought frequency out into the field. Like I said, my heart is my magnetic. So
Mhm.
when unaware and unconscious of what I'm thinking and feeling, you're only attracting more of that back to you. So I had to really become conscious
Yep.
of self. What it is, I want to feel better. I don't want to, continue feeling these low, hurtful, blame, shame, restrictive and constrictive energies and think I'm going to have higher communications with my guides and team. So I really had to take a step back, and that's what I help my clients with, is understanding the four energetic keys to creation. And so I really had to take a survey of, number one, my frequency, knowing thyself, my mind, what was I choosing, even, unconsciously, but in each now moment, I have a choice. What would I enjoy feeling? And taking a survey on what it was I was attracting for myself.
You are what you eat. I mean, that's
That's it.
you are what you eat. If you're going to eat low frequency, that's what you're going to be, and you are what you eat. Yeah, that's a principle that we will live and die by. So, how did you, when you recognize that, Bethany, and you recognize and you went into study? And I tell people this is, you will live a circular life until you make a decision, and that decision has to be done by the subconscious being. It cannot be done by the natural man. Well, natural man, when he makes a decision, it's just like New Year's. Oh, I'll lose the weight and whatever. And we really don't. We do it for a couple of weeks and whatever because we didn't make it subconsciously. Jesus makes a statement, those who have ears, let them hear. He was talking about this subconscious being within us. And when we hear with that individual and we make a decision, because the woman with the issue of blood, she said within herself, that means that she had to
Mm.
say it in her subconscious being. If I would touch the hem of his garment, she made a declaration as to what she wanted. I'm going to get what I wanted. So what you did, and I tell people, when that individual makes that decision, you will find yourself hunting down data to bring into your space because this individual made a decision, and that data that you're going to be hunting down because he made a decision is like food.
But,
It's
it's
like you're just
amazing.
feeding him and he's just drinking and eating and eating. And then as he begins to understand, his subconscious being begins to get it. And they call that revelation and insights and all those different. When he begins to get it, that's when your world began to change because you are now going to began to take command of your creation. Talk to us about that process in your life, Bethany, as you began to digest the data, and what did the data begin to expose? Because you have trauma that you have to be brought to your attention to deal with. And then you have to start your journey of self-love. Talk to us about that whole process coming into your life.
That's the thing. If you want to see a change, you first must be the change.
Yeah.
You have to step into thyself, really take accountability of everything that you are choosing for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely one of the most magical places I have experienced is doing something different. Doing something different. What is a lot of my clients, they're like, I just want to feel better. Well, okay, I get that. We all want to feel better, but what are we actively choosing in each now moment? Are we being insane? Are we doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome?
Mm-hmm.
And so going in, I've found with many of my clients, they come to me and their cup is already full on an energy. Now I'm talking about an energetic level. The cup is already full. Well, what we do is I work with my teams and your teams, and we go in and we pull out. We bring to awareness the limiting beliefs, the thought processing, the pain looping, the storytelling. What are we doing? What are we creating? What is the end goal? What do you want? What do you want to experience? Because, we're all infinite
Mm-hmm.
beings with a body, and gaining awareness and working with the body and is huge, huge. It's funny, it's interesting because Who sleeps at night, the being or the body? Who eats the food, the being or the body? When we're asleep at night, what's sleeping? The body? But what are we doing as an infinite being? Would
Mhm.
it be okay? Would it be safe to say that you're out of the body having experiences with other beings? Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
So, because I have such a communication now with my teams and my beings and my son that and I get them most of the time during sleep time. They're in the beginning. And then now it's just full on flow, tapped in, man. And it's so
It
good.
I remember when I started my process, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, I would pop up every single day, 3 in the morning, boom, boom. And I remember getting up and understanding what it was. And so I would use that time, the witching hour, as they say, I would use that time to go into my meditation and my prayer. And the information, if you will, the downloads that I would get would be incredible stuff. The things that I got that in human behavior and what we would call revelations that I spoke about one time. I was given this download and I spoke about it and I began to teach people about it. I did not hear anyone talk about it for years. And the day that my parents actually, they heard someone talking about it and they've got a tape and they made it and they gave it to me. This was about 5 years later. Bethany, I cried. I cried and cried because here I was 5 years before talking about this thing that I had received in a download and no one had ever talked about it. And it was a validation 5 years later. I just broke down and just cried. That's all I could do. Realize that I wasn't crazy because the stuff and that was from those 3 in the morning, getting up and stuff like that and praying and meditating.
So interesting because I had a similar experience about 3 in the morning. One morning, I was awakened at 3:33 in the morning
Hmm.
to go out, and I had this huge surge. I had to go outside. Okay, I'm gonna go outside. So I'm sitting there on my deck, and Ken, I'm just enjoying the experience of hearing the frogs, listening to the crickets, and just looking up at the star sky and just being in awe of all of this God's creation. And in that moment, Ken, I had a golden orbed being fly down and fly the whole length of my 13-acre lake. This golden sphere. And I did not know that this was a thing. This is my first time to see, witness, experience anything of this magnitude. And when this golden orb being flew past me, it was a frequency in all of its own. It just transformed my frequency, my presence. The presence of love, compassion, joy, gratefulness is something. I mean, it was a magical moment for me.
Yeah,
And I
those times you have to be obedient to the awakening, to the call, if you will, and you never know what will happen, but obedience is always the key. And when you surrender, there's a degree, and I tell people surrendering happens on a daily basis. You have to surrender your expectations and all of those different things, your timing, and trust that God's timing is much better than yours because He has a better vantage point at your situation than you because you're still looking at the narrow thing and He's looking at way
yeah,
down years out.
exactly. And what if we've never done anything wrong? What if we've never done anything wrong? Everything that we've experienced is for our soul's evolution. And so I
Absolutely.
through the pain and lower frequency, that's where I grew the most. And it's so interesting because instead of looking at it and saying, oh, that's wrong. Oh, I shouldn't feel that. I shouldn't be that. I can't do that. And stepping into, wow, that was an interesting thought process. Wow, that really got my awareness. That really got me feeling something.
Hmm.
That's where the growth is.
It's the only tool known to
Yes.
man on this planet that produces character traits. Everything else, if you and I never went through any pain,
How
we would
boring.
not know, number one, who we are. Number two, we're not going to know anything. We're not going to become familiar with such a thing as perseverance. We're not going to know anything about the hope that you hang on to come out of it. You're not going to know about so much unless you go through there. You're not going to learn the bad depths of who you are and what you're capable of and
Yes.
how deep you are. You're not going to know anything about anything. You're not going to know anything about love. You're not going to know anything until those hard time comes, because it is in that excavation of self, within the dark self, the darkness of
Mhm.
our situation, that we see and are given the vantage point of how beautiful and how powerful we are.
But how fun will the test be if you knew all the answers? You know what I mean?
People We've been lied to because, like you said, we've been programmed by Disney, and Disney
Mhm.
always have these wonderful stories and all these different things, in the sense that the fairy tales. And so everyone believes life is just a fairy tale, but there's a cost to the life that we live here on this planet, and that cost is the pain, which gives us self, which gives us everything
Yeah.
else.
Just like Sleeping Beauty, we were taught as young kids to always look outside of ourselves for somebody to come save us.
Mhm.
To Cinderella to get the fairy tale shoe, giving her power away, saying that this person is gonna be the one that makes my life magical, when
Yeah,
really it's you. You are the creator of your reality, and once you
absolutely.
and co-create with the creator, I mean, once you step into that that's huge, huge. And it's not only Disney. As we got older, what do we do with the media, the news? Every time I turn on the news now, it's like, oh my gosh, war, bombs, you know, ailments, fighting, murder.
I
There,
don't
I
listen
have
to it.
yet to feel anything of high frequency coming from the news, the media, the programming on the television.
It's not
Yes, it's
designed for that. Their
no,
system is
exactly,
not interested in that. They want to keep you and I as servants, as slaves in the mind where we are in that lower frequency, so that they can
exactly.
use us as
Manipulate.
batteries, as they say, and plug
That's
us in and
exactly
take us.
right.
So
That's
so talk
exactly
to
right.
me here. Talk to me here, because here I am. I've listened to this wonderful podcast, and this is the individual, and I want you to walk them through if someone shows up to you. What is your process? Because I know I always tell people you are your first client, but then you have your other clients outside of you. Talk to me, bring me to one of those times that you had a conversation with someone, as I told you what I did with Erin, and you watch them change with that and create that new perspective, which gives them that light, if you will, that freedom of choice. Once they see it, they become free and they're able to live a brand new life. Talk to us about one of those situations, and then I have a question I want to throw at you.
Okay. One of those situations, I had an amazing woman come to me, and she had just lost her son months previous. And so we started to work together, and it was absolutely amazing. When we first started working together, she did not understand, gather how she could communicate with her child. And so after working with her, she then began to open up to the new awareness of connection is possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. And when we after that second week of working with me, honey, this woman had so much communication with her child that it blew her away. And it's not only communication with your crossed over loved one or your child. We started beginning to take a deep dive in creation. What are you wanting to or enjoying creating? Would you enjoy creating for her? It was money. So after I went in and did some energetic clearings, to pull out some of that dense negative
Hmm.
energy that's in her field, she was able then to attract new limitless possibilities, an infinite amount of them. And so after working with me for several weeks, honey, she manifested some big time money, and it was just so cool to see and have that communications with her child and then she went through one of my programs, and it's just amazing as I'm sitting here facilitating for her to see the growth and the expansion within moments, because I can see her field, I can see her frequency, I can see her aura, and I can really deep dive and see what's keeping her bound, tethered, and locked, blocked, and stopped. So I go in and I cancel, cut, and clear it in all space, place, time, dimension, density, reality, parallel reality, omniverse, multiverse, and universe, and then we clear it out on 3 and it leaves. Yeah, it's
That is
pretty.
awesome. This question I want to throw at you. You have a mic, Bethany, and this mic is connected to all of us, a billion people on this planet. What would you say?
I would say, guess what? You are one magical, powerful being. You are what you are waiting for. You are the ripple effect that will change humanity. If you want to see a change, you must be the change and step into how powerful you truly are and gain that connection with your heart. And then you will have the higher infinite wisdom come through. Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to provide all of her links for you to get to her, and I dare you to get into her space because many of you are in grief. You're grieving the death of something. Maybe in her case, the death of a child. Many of you
Or a
may be in
job,
grief because of a job, a divorce, a marriage.
money.
All of these things are death of, and they will lead you into grief. Here is someone who's acquainted with grief and has learned the process whereby one can come out and change everything. And all of you that are in that space of grief, I'm going to give you her stuff. This is someone you want to get into her space because she has proof that she is out. She gave you proof. Right? That's why I asked you that story about that woman, and she gave you proof. And so I want to challenge all of you guys that are in that space for whatever reason to get in touch with her and book that call and change your life. Bethany, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Ken, thank you so much. I had such a amazing fun time. Wow. Wow.
I am so glad you
Your heart
came.
beat magic. Your heart being is magic.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.